am a reasonable person, but everybody has their boiling point. And I find myself sitting on the landing of this staircase, staring at this pissed off 5-year-old girl dressed head to toe in a pink tutu. Now, I've been her nanny for almost her whole life, and I'm also starting to feel a little angry because this temper tantrum that she has decided to have right here in the middle of the stairs feels completely unnecessary. It's something we've been over like a dozen times before, and both she and I know that all she has to do is raise her voice high enough and her baby sister will wake up, whom I have just spent the last half an hour rocking asleep for her afternoon nap. It's a heavy baby. So I take a breath, try to calm myself. Now, here's the thing. When I was 5, when I was her age, I was obsessed with this movie called The Boy Who Could Fly.
Yeah.
Oh, you know it! Now, for those of you who don't know it, it may come as a shocker, but it's actually about a boy who can fly. And this kid, he can't talk. People think that he's autistic, and nobody believes him that he could fly, except for this one girl. And at the end of the movie, the powers that may be have decided to take him to an insane asylum. So he and the girls with him are being chased by these men in white uniforms, and they chase them both to the rooftop of this building. And just before they're about to grab the boy holds out his hand, and the girl puts her hand in his, and together they jump off the building and plummet to their deaths. I'm just kidding, they fly. They fucking fly, and there just so happens to be a town fair happening, so everybody in the town sees this. And all the people that you've seen throughout the movie tease the boy, undermine him, ignore him. They point and their jaws drop. And then they start to cheer. And watching this as a 5-year-old, I was jumping up on the couch like, yeah! I mean, I was ecstatic. I could not imagine what that boy must be feeling in that moment. To finally be seen and heard and understood like that. Now, at the time, I was really struggling with temper tantrums. And these were not pink tutu temper tantrums. These are pretty intense, actually. There's a lot of kicking, biting, screaming, vast amounts of snot involved, and it wasn't uncommon for them to last like a couple of hours. And there was this rage that went with them that scared me. Like, I remember one time I told my mom I was not putting on my seatbelt, but she insisted, the gall. And so she came around to buckle up my car seat. I was 4. And as she leaned over, I spat in her face. Another time when I was 4, again, we were in the car, and I said, Mom, Dad, I want you to take off your seatbelts so that when we get into a car accident, I can watch you die. Now, my parents, they were reasonable people. And they had also been reasonable kids. So they had really no point of reference. They were trying to figure out how to handle this whole, dealio. And they were trying everything. They were trying their damnedest. Like, there were reward charts, timeout chairs, a vast array of consequences. My mom took a parenting class. At one time, even though my dad was really opposed to this idea, when I was 4.5, he tried to spank me. But when he laid me across his lap, I bit his thigh. So the funny thing is, like, I actually wanted these things to work. I did not like having these temper tantrums. They really sucked. But I could feel them coming on, and I was thinking, oh, God, please, no, not again. It was this tension that would start in my stomach and would build up and then just come bursting out of me. So I was pretty relieved when my mom sat me down and she said, honey, what can we do to help you when you're having these temper tantrums? Like, help me help you. She Jerry Maguire'd me. And I was like, I got this very clear vision of her just holding me. despite the kicks and the screams and the snot, is calmly but firmly holding me. But when I tried to say this to her, I suddenly felt so ashamed. Even at that age, I knew that that was a lot to ask of someone. So I just mumbled something like, maybe just kind of be nice to me. And a couple of days later, my parents took me to a therapist. I didn't know it then, but he was assessing me and telling them that it would be okay to start locking me in my room when I had these meltdowns. So the first time I was locked in my room, my hands hurt so much from banging my fist against the door. So I went to the closet where they kept the Hoover vacuum. I pulled that out and I propped it up against the door and I started banging the handle into the wood until it was covered in dents. I flung my body against the wall, the floor, and I remember jumping up and down the couch on the bed, thinking and screaming and thinking, if I just keep this up long enough, somebody will come. Now, I didn't know it then, but my dad was so worried that I was going to fling myself against the window that he was actually standing in the driveway for the full 2 or 3 hours that this lasted, ready to catch me in case I came flying out. Now, for some reason, all this comes bubbling to my memory as I'm looking at this pissed off 5-year-old girl in the tutu. And I'm still angry, and I want to lay down the law. I want to tell her, show her this is not appropriate. But I look at her, and the way she's spitting out words at me and glaring at me and her body language, and I stop myself because suddenly I recognize something in her. And it occurs to me, I think, does she want what I wanted? So I stop and I scooch over next to her. And she pulls away from me, she glares, but I keep coming in and I wrap my arms around her waist and I pull her onto my lap. And I'm bracing myself for the tears and the hits and screams, but they never come. She relaxes against me and takes this deep breath. And we just sit there for a minute in silence. And then I say, you know what, girlfriend? I think you're the greatest. And I give her a kiss on top of her head. And then I say, you want to go get some lunch? And she nods. And so we stand up to go downstairs, get some lunch like 2 reasonable people. And as we're walking down the stairs, I hold out my hand. And she puts her hand in mine. And I think, I finally understand the feeling that boy had at the end of the movie. I just didn't have to fly to get it. Thank you.